Okay, let's come back to Italy and El Duce, the Mussolini. Italy invades Ethiopia. Remember, as we said, is one of the only independent nations in Africa in 1935, and they officially add Ethiopia to the Italian Empire. They're trying out some new gases and new weapons, so it's particularly horrific for the Ethiopians, and again, the League of Nations does nothing. So the League of Nations does very little, if anything, to stop Mussolini's invasion. Mussolini, basically, remember again, his goal is to reestablish the glory of the Roman Empire, just like Hitler's goal is to reestablish the glory of the German Empire. And Italy got no land in the Treaty of Versailles, and so they're looking to get it any way that they can. Germany is also building up for war too. You can see here's a picture of Hitler, and then right beside him, this is Mussolini. Hitler's searching for, again, this word, the Lebensraum, which is living space. It's a German word for living space. So if we think about like where Germany is, basically what he wants to do is take over all of the land where there are German-speaking people. So he's originally, from Austria, which is German-speaking. Even today, it's still German-speaking. And then also we have Sudetenland here, which is part of Czechoslovakia. Now, Austria, the people weren't that upset about joining up with Germany. The Sudetenland, however, was not so excited about this. In 1936, Italy and Germany and Japan all signed these secret military agreements to fight together and to fight communism. It is important to note that Hitler, not only does he hate the Jews, the only people he hates less than that are right up there with the Jews is the Slavs. So he doesn't like Stalin, doesn't like communism. And so Austria is annexed by force, but again, Austria is not too upset about this. And so then he decides to take the Sudetenland, and then he invades the rest of Czechoslovakia. Now, the Chamberlain, who's the leader of Britain, actually shows up, and they actually have this meeting, and he talks to Hitler and basically says, okay, so, you took Austria, don't take any more land. And of course not. And then he takes the Sudetenland. And then they're like, well, don't take any more land. And then he takes to Czechoslovakia. I think it's important to note that when Chamberlain came back, he was seen as a hero. And the idea is that everybody believed had avoided war. And they really think that they've avoided war until they begin to see that he really is never going to stop. And after he takes Czechoslovakia, they're like, that's it, don't take any more. And then he takes Poland, and then Poland ultimately is the start of the war. So you can see here's Chamberlain with Hitler. I'm not sure who this gentleman is. They're making this meeting. Also during this time, I think it's important to understand, remember how much I said that Hitler hates Stalin? Hitler, though, wants to succeed, so he makes a secret pact with the Soviets. It's called the Nazi-Soviet Pact, and they announce that, and nobody knows about this, basically that when Hitler invades Poland, then Stalin will invade Poland as well, and they will split it up. Hitler's ultimate downfall is he, like Napoleon, tries to invade Russia and doesn't work out well because Hitler breaks this pact. Hitler uses before he breaks the pact, though, he's using the USSR as a place for training and experimenting with new weapons. Remember, they weren't supposed to have a military. That was one of the parts of the Treaty of Versailles. But ever since he's been in power, he's been ignoring all of that. And again, the League of Nations does nothing. So September 1st, 1939, Hitler invades Poland. Now, this is Britain and France had said, if you invade Poland, we're declaring war. That's the last straw. So they declare war, but Hitler takes it over before they even know what happens. Because trench warfare was so horrible, they tried to do something to get around that, and that's what the Germans came up with, Blitzkrieg, which is this lightning warfare, which I'm going to talk a little bit more in depth in a few minutes. 2 days later, France and Great Britain joined the war to support Poland, but again, they don't even have time to mobilize troops to get them there. You can see the tanks. Tanks are going to make a huge difference in World War II. 2 weeks later, the Soviet Union, led by Joseph Stalin, invades Poland from the east. But then Hitler and Stalin's pact is going to fall apart. I love this political cartoon too. You can see the eastern frontier. So we're talking about Poland. What do you see? Here's Stalin with his little mustache, and then we've got Hitler. They're kind of tied together like a three-legged race. But what do you notice in both of their hands? They both have guns pointing at each other. So ultimately, neither one of them really trust each other. And that's kind of the idea that they did this because it was mutual benefit, but they didn't trust each other. So war officially begins when Great Britain and France declare war on Germany and Italy, and Germany is using these new military tactics. Poland falls within a month. The Allies don't even have time to send troops. Now keep in mind, we talked about Gallipoli, where a battle lasted for a year, and so this is a huge change. Blitzkrieg is lightning warfare. It's quick. This is a new German tactic. They use new technology. So basically what you do is you send in bombers first. And then you send in fighter planes with machine guns. And then the tanks come, and then the foot soldiers come. And so basically by doing this quick approach, there's no time to like dig into trenches, and then you just take things very quickly. And that's what we see, is we see just boom, 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 boom. They just keep taking over all the different parts of Europe. And so he's going to move from Poland, he's going to move over and take Belgium, the Netherlands, and then he's going to even move into France, and it's going to all happen very quickly. So again, it's all about speed and surprise, moving quickly, and if possible, come behind them, like come from behind, and force the enemy to retreat. And that's definitely what they do in France, and it's just amazing how quickly France will fall. And so this again is avoiding, the reason they use Blitzkrieg is to avoid the trench warfare of World War I. So what is it about World War II that just really attracts us? This is the biggest war in human history. First of all, one, it's the number of deaths, 45 million people. Death could be higher, but we don't know the exact population of China before 1937, so it could be even more. And that's just insane when you compare it's only a couple of million in World War I. The amount of destruction, just the sheer this devastation. A lot of Europe has to be rebuilt because of the bombs. Also think about Japan and the destruction with the atomic bomb. The scope of the war, the size of it, it fought with even more areas than where World War I was. The number of countries involved, the number of people involved. The horrors of the war, specifically the Holocaust. The Holocaust is a killing of 6 million Jews, but during the Holocaust, 6 million other people were also killed in concentration camps. 2/3 of the population of Europe's Jews are wiped out. Poland suffers the worst. 90% of the Jewish population of Poland is wiped out during the Holocaust. We will spend a day next week. We will talk about the Holocaust. This is also the first time that they use atomic weapons. This is the big new weapon for World War II. A lot of those new weapons from World War I are going to make a difference in World War II, like airplanes and tanks, but the atomic bomb is really the only kind of big new weapon for World War II. The atomic bomb, of course, was developed in America, ironically by Einstein, who was escaping from Germany control, who also was Jewish. So interestingly enough, the thing that the Germans were trying to do might have been able to accomplish had they not treated the Jews as such. The change of what happens at the end of World War II is a complete change in the balance of power. We go from like 6 equal powers, Britain and France and the US, the Soviet Union, Germany, to 2 really big powers. And so ultimately at the end of World War II, we have the 2 superpowers, the US and the Soviet Union, which will usher us into the Cold War. And this was the war that people used to reference for other wars, the metaphor for all war. Like often we think that war, ends. There's a winner, there's a good guy, there's a bad guy, there's a winner, there's a loser. And most wars aren't like that. It's hard to tell who's the good guy, who's the bad guy, or if there is a good guy or bad guy. Like World War I, it's everybody was equally at fault. World War II, though, we have an obvious aggressive acts by Germany and Italy and Japan. And we go to war because there's no way to avoid it. And we go to war ultimately to try to end the horrors that the Germans and Italians and the Japanese are doing. It also ends with complete surrender of Germany and Japan. That is very rare. It doesn't happen that often, but it does in World War II. So that finishes up our notes on World War II, and we will, for our introduction, and we'll be talking about specific battles next week.